and also currently is a water and environmental consultant under his firm Water and Environment. So to say a few words, Dr. Wossenu Abtew is a professional civil engineer and water resource engineer certified by the American Academy of Water Resource Engineers. He worked as a principal engineer at the South Florida Water Management District for close to 30 years before retiring. And currently he is a consultant in water resources and environment area. His experience includes work in hydrology, water management, environmental restorations, reservoir sizing and operation, the Nile River Basin and the GERD. And he's now actively working on providing some insight and knowledge on the Nile and GERD issue. He has published a book on GERD and other books on the Nile Basin, including ET, Extreme Hydrology and Landscape Dynamics. He has also published his works in many journals and book chapters, conference proceedings, and reports on diverse subjects. We have collaborated with Dr. Abtew for a long time, and we have published so many peer-reviewed and also edited books along with him. So his topic today is importance of wetlands for regional hydroclimate and ecology. Particularly, he'd like to comment on the impacts of draining the Sudd wetlands in Sudan in the Nile Basin. So with that, I'll be moderating this. So the presentation will be video recorded. It is being video recorded, so please be aware. And please mute your microphone for the duration of the presentations, and mute to ask questions after the presentations ended and when it's time for Q&A. You can also send chat to the moderator for questions or comments.
Thank you for attending the webinar. I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is the importance of wetlands for regional hydroclimate and ecology, and the impact of draining the said wetlands in the Nile Basin with comparison to the Everglades. So here is a picture where we have northern Everglades in South Florida, the original form, and also drained with a canal. So the situation is very parallel with the Sudd. And here we have the Nile Basin. The Sudd is in South Sudan, about 500 kilometers in length, and the Everglades system is 440 kilometers long. The whole effort of draining the Sudd is to increase the average flow by about 4 billion cubic meters. And drainage here was to drain areas for settlement and for agriculture. The two systems are, if you see the Everglades and the upper part, we have indigenous Indian tribes, and we have also indigenous people in the Sudd, and we have deer here, Sudd here, and these are settlement of indigenous Indian people in the Everglades, and this is for the Sudd. The upper part of the Everglades is called the Northern Everglades with Kissimmee River. This is its natural feature, and this is the Sudd. The natural river systems have this kind of pattern of flows and the straight canal. And this was the Northern Everglades being drained into a straight canal in the 1960s. And this was the Sudd drainage of the Jonglei Canal in the 1970s. This 1983 as a result of the liberation war by the Sudanese people. And this one was successfully drained by early 1970. So what happened to the Everglades is such a straight canal was created, but when you create a straight canal, water starts flowing at high rate, so there is a managing flooding downstream. So there were 5 control structures along the way. There is one example. with a spillway, low control for boat navigation. And as you see on the left, on the right is a tie-back levee, which creates a pool above the structures. So these 5 structures were used basically to control the damage that was created by digging up a canal, which has a potential to flood downstream. And you can see the floodplain was changed to grazing land. And on the right side, the Sudd wetlands are planned to be dug like this if it goes through the plan. And then water should flow faster, and you probably the same kind of problems will arise over there. So the original Everglades in 1880s looks a lot of small canals, the Kissimmee River coming to Lake Okeechobee, and it overflows the lake, and water flows as sheet flow to the Florida Bay, Gulf of Mexico. And as a result of this pattern, the fauna and flora are unique for this wetland system. So the drainage, beginning at the end of the 1980s, the 1880s until now, it is a continuous work. There is about over 3,200 kilometers of levees and canals, 160 drainage basins, 600 water control structures, 90 pumps. Some of them are the biggest on the planet. A lot of lakes and ponds. And this is billions of dollars work that never finished because there is flooding somewhere and you have to move water around. These are some of the structures. And here we have big pumps as big as 136 meters cubed per second to maintain this system. So from this natural system, you get into this one. Now, what is the importance of wetlands? The wetlands store carbon, nutrients, and metals. Every year, due to the growth of vegetation and dying of vegetation, it takes carbon out of the carbon dioxide from the air and changes into organic matter, and that falls down, dies off, and changes into peat or organic soil. Also, environmental cooling, green surface and water, as I will show later, have effect of cooling the environment. Role in hydrologic cycle, water surfaces and wetlands contribute to rainfall cycle in the area and further from away from the wetland. Ecology of the fauna and flora are environmentally important, and cultural and food supply importance to inhabitants, and also the natural wetland system builds by itself the topography and the hydraulics, meaning when vegetation dies, there will be rich sloughs, so that natural pattern of water flow, both in direction and the depth of flow, that is naturally maintained. When you start playing with that, then you can come up with a lot of problems, water going into different directions. Also, the flood control ability of wetlands, as we have seen in our case, when you put a canal, you lose that flood control capacity. And it has also water storage capacity. It also recharges groundwater. So the comparison of the Everglades in the US and the Sudd in South Sudan. The Everglades was affected by drainage and changing landscape. And we can predict what could happen if the Sudd is drained. In the Everglades, billions of dollars is being spent to restore damage done by drainage. That is, hydro pattern changes, bring back to historical water flow pattern, improve water quality, ecology, and protect endangered species. So a lot of billions of dollars are being spent on this. The reason for the drainage was a settlement started in the 1940s. There was a hurricane, and the flooding problem was so much that levee building water control structure building started, and it is continuing to this date. So what happened after draining this into this system is, this is a pit or the organic soil in 1880s, which is, for example, if you take this, it is 13, 14 feet deep pit soil. After this, what happened is, in this area, 250,000 hectares of sugarcane production agriculture was developed. And as a result, the pit soil was oxidized. As you can see from 13, 14 feet depth, it is almost 1 or 2 feet depth left, which will not last very long as an agricultural area. So the biggest damage in draining a wetland is you will oxidize the soil, and you come up with deep holes or bowls like this. And you can imagine what will happen to Sudd or any other wetland with respect to this. This is the agricultural area I was telling about. Now it is like a bowl, a hole, and there are pump stations all around here that have to drain it in order to maintain it as agricultural field. And the elevation of this storage areas is higher than the other one. What happened is, when you drain a wetland, fire can start. It is like coal or oil. Once fire starts, until there is a big rain, the soil will start burning. Another one, dry organic soil gets oxidized into carbon dioxide, because the only way you can protect it from oxidation is to keep it underwater, under anaerobic condition. And here is a post that was posted in the agricultural area in 1924. The top part was the level of the soil. And by 2003, 2 meters of organic soil is lost. So basically, ground elevation has gone down by 2 feet. And any wetland that is drained, the outcome is clear with respect to this. This is another example from Holme, England. This is a wetland that was drained, has lost 4.5 meters of soil in 150 years. This was the top of the level of the soil in 1848, and by 1992, it is at the feet of the person standing there. And these are types of organic soils that can be oxidized when they are kept out of water. So draining the Sudd of the Nile Basin basically will result in loss of environmental cooling, which will result in climate change. Also, the carbon sequestration capacity will be lost. From a North America wetland data, 160 grams of carbon per meter square per year can be sequestered every year in a wetland. In the case of Sudd, because it is a tropical system, this number will be far higher, because North America is a temperate area and vegetation doesn't grow as fast as much as the tropics. That is what will be lost. Another one will be what is already stored for millennia will start rising carbon, nutrient, metal, and this will start soil loss and contribute greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. Tons and tons, I'll show you later on. Also, the hydrologic cycle of the area will change, dry condition will prevail. I have an example from South Florida, what kind of change happened in rainfall because of the drainage of the canal. Also, the impact on ecology, fauna and flora will be devastating. Cultural and food supply importance for inhabitants will be lost. Topography and change, and as a result of the drainage, water can go to places that you don't want. And then, like what we did in South Florida, you have to keep on building levees and water control structures. And one thing Sudan hasn't been aware of, that the canal will result in aggravation in flooding to Sudan, to Khartoum. because currently it is flooded as is. If you have additional water come at a faster rate, you have to build a levee like we are doing here around the city. And then you have to build a pump to drain out when there is rainfall in the city, as we are doing here. And that is extremely expensive undertaking. So if you see the Sahara, it expands 1.5 kilometers per year to the south. Mali, Niger, even the Cordovan region of northern Sudan is drying. And the Sudd is not very far apart from here. The green belt here is just at the border of the Sahara. So it is very important for life to exist in this area, producing food and getting water, that protection should be done, afforestation work should be done, and wetlands should be protected for the interest of everybody. Egypt might get some more water for a short time, but in the long run, draining the Sudd will be devastating for the region as a whole. How does that cooling impact is lost? Here is an example. When you change the landscape, what happens to the temperature of that area? Here we have forest, dry meadows, and the road. And on the right side is a thermal vision, basically temperature measurement of the surface. And as you see it from here, the darker is cooler. So the forest surface is cooler, followed by the meadow, and the road is hot. So when you dry your wetlands into dry area, the floodplain is changing into dry area, temperature will rise up. I'm not going to go through details. Why this happens is the driving energy on the surface of the planet is solar energy. That solar energy, when it's the surface, it is proportioned into storage in the ground or water, evapotranspiration, a sensible energy which changes the temperature of the surface. And here, a wetland will have more of the solar energy used for evaporation, and intermediate regions might be equal, and the Sahel or the dry area, the sensible heat which raises temperature will be higher. So changing your landscape will change your temperature. That's basically what it is. And in terms of carbon sequestration, there is 1.6 ton of carbon per hectare per year for a riverian wetland. For the Sudd, even with this rate, you can estimate that 30 million tons per year can be sequestered. This is carbon. And if East Africa or other region try to do something to remove this kind of carbon, it won't be possible. So when you drain it, you contribute quite a lot. And the release also is a lot. 1,000 metric ton of dry organic soil. When it is oxidized, almost half of it comes out as carbon, which is a greenhouse gas. In terms of hydroclimate change, for South Florida, actual study was done how this energy is proportioned. This is the land use in 1900, and this was the land cover land use in 1993. So what in this study, what they did was how sensible heat and latent heat or evaporation, solar energy was distributed between the two landscape. The result was in 1993, the evaporation portion has decreased and the sensible heat has increased, meaning this area has warmed up as a result of the drainage. And that people can tell you this place is heating up than it was before. In terms of rainfall, the same place, rainfall analysis for July, August, convective rainfall. There are many kinds of rainfalls in South Florida. One of these convective rainfall, basically evaporation goes up, and a small area high intensity rainfall comes down. This is common in the summertime. And this study shows that as a result of the drainage and changing the landscape, the rainfall of this pattern rainfall has decreased so much between 1920s and 2000. So you can change the hydroclimate of an area by draining wetlands. Here we have Khartoum in September 2022 flooded, and here we have South Florida flooded in 2008 as a result of tropical system. We get flooded from tropical system, from El Nino type frontal system, or from some convective systems. Some parts of the town can get flooded. So it is a continuous work of managing the flood, even with such a complex, expensive undertaking over here. So if the Sudd is channelized, I think Khartoum should expect flooding frequency to be very high. And there are experiences in 1916, 1994, where flow coming from Lake Victoria was twice as much as what it should be. During those high flow times, there will be problem both for South Sudan, and the channelization might not solve all the purpose of flood control for South Sudan and water supply for Egypt. So restoration work in South Florida case, it was realized that it was not a good idea to drain wetlands, and a lot of work is done. $1 billion of work was done on the Kissimmee River to remove structures, expand the floodplain, and a lot of earthwork has to be done. This is the result, and this is the channelized river. Two of the structures, which as an example I put over here, are removed, and the outcome is the floodplain starts getting flooded. So to some extent, the restoration work is being done. And here's also a report from South Florida Water Management District, the same place over here, like this, after the restoration work is done. So south of Lake Okeechobee, the southern part of the Everglades, a lot of restoration work is being done to improve hydro pattern, and we are building constructed wetlands, meaning farmlands are being changed into wetlands to remove phosphorus, protect wildlife, and for storage purposes. So phosphorus-laden drainage comes from the ag areas, and there are constructed wetlands, which I'll show you what they look like. And that water, improved water, flows down to the Everglades. And these are 4 examples of the constructed wetlands. These places used to be the agricultural areas. So basically, build back wetlands in this case, and about 25,000 hectares of wetlands are rebuilt with water constructed to move in water and to take out water. And about drainage and drying of places, 2022 is extremely unique year where rivers are drying and wetlands are drying up. I don't think the circulation models ever predicted in 2022 that the Rhine and the Colorado and many more rivers will dry up. And the world will face such kind of challenges, especially in the Colorado River Basin. So this is a year where water, especially in the United States, the Western United States, the value is very much recognized. So unpredicted drying of rivers and water bodies can happen. And Rhine and Danube are big rivers. This is the left side is the Loire River in France, completely dry. The Tiber and Po in Italy, and reservoir in Spain, and the Colorado and Lake Mead in the United States are extremely low at this time. And you can see here the Colorado, the main storage is Lake Mead in 2017 on the left side. Now this is what it looks like. So newspapers have reported, started reporting, and what they recognized is without the statistical hydrology information, that the numbers that were used for the treaty between Mexico and the United States were not done correctly, because they are blaming the engineers, American and Mexican engineers who drafted the treaty. What they did was used the mean of the historical data. What happened now is non-stationarity, which means that the mean of the flow that existed in the past may not be correct, may not exist now because of climate change and other changes. So if you sign up for the Nile Basin Treaty on the past flow, this will happen. You will be blamed for using the wrong historical data. Here also another report, the 100-year miscalculations, basically the treaty numbers are called here miscalculation. So for the Nile Basin, and if they use existing data and then come up with volumetric agreement that will give, you'll send 30 billion, 40 billion, that water may not be there. So all the treaties from now on have to be on percentage basis, percentage of what is there. That will solve the problem. Now, what is the association of wetland drainage and climate change? Climate change, there is a UN convention coming in November, which is COP27. Basically, the UN members are going to get together and talk about how to manage the climate. But more and more, these are becoming bureaucratic meetings, because now if you are draining the Sudd, with all this capacity of carbon sequestration, you can't talk about climate change, because other measures that are taken in Africa will not contribute that much. So the burden of climate change mitigation and credit, economic value of carbon sequestration by wetlands and granaries. African countries who have large wetlands or granaries should get credit and be sequestering carbon every year. So, for example, here I have a study by Canada. They have about 55,000 kilometers square wetlands in Northeast Canada, Nova Scotia, and they have calculated a carbon credit of 10 billion Canadian dollar or 13 billion US dollar. This means they can send through their industries up into the air a certain amount of carbon and get credit, or sell this to others, get money for maintaining their wetlands. So with African case, because of the gap in information, I don't think they have yet realized that there is value to it. So the Sudd, in my estimation, roughly can make $18 billion for South Sudan. And Ethiopia also should get credit for the green initiative of massive reforestation, urban greening, and irrigation expansion. So in this case, Africa has to really make benefit out of maintaining a good environment for everybody, at the same time getting credit. So, but with the Sudd, South Sudan can get benefit out of the resource through tourism, recreation, managed hunting, and also there can be planned settlement, economic activity without damaging the wetlands excessively, food production, fishing, and the carbon credit might offset whatever they want to do on that wetland for economic purpose. And the sale of water, they can sell the water, and like everybody selling water, they can benefit from that. if they go ahead and drain the Sudd, there will be the lives of habitats and the flora and fauna, a lot of ecosystem change, and the hydroclimate will be affected for the whole region. There will be a lot of peat fire, and the smoke will affect other areas. And at the same time, that area will have a pattern of ponds, pools, paths, and water going everywhere else. Will not have control, because from there, any fire that starts in organic soil will change the topography and the direction of flow. And from our experience here, droughts and floods will be common. And because when the massive flows comes once in a while, the altered system, you don't have idea where the water is going to head from there. Then you have to start putting levees to protect certain areas, or putting water control structures. It won't be easy to manage with South Florida experience. So the topography change will change the hydraulics of the system. Levees, canals, and water control structures will start both for the Sudan and for South Sudan. Also, by doing South Sudan loses its water right by opening a canal, sending it down, and later on, if there is a water sharing agreement comes, once you let the water go down, might be hard to claim the water again. So all these effects will be there. What does South Florida look right now after all this drainage work and urbanization? This is just one part of it. Most the high rises and the big structures are on the coast, both on the Atlantic Ocean and Gulf of Mexico. What is expanding into the wetlands is the suburbs. And as you can see now, there is a big canal in the middle. The wetlands are to the right, and people live over here, but it's water everywhere, and flooding is quite common too. So this can show you what happens when you drain wetlands. That is my presentation. I would like to take questions if there are any. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Now let me Wossenu, can you stop sharing your slides?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Again, thank you, Wossenu, for your presentations, very elaborate presentations. You have touched about this historical project, which started about 40 years ago and started in 1984, but again stopped. But now it's being reinitiated. It looks like it's a little bit, the irony is Egypt and Sudan are complaining about the impact of GERD, particularly on the downstream hydrology, and then Sudanese are allowing the draining of the largest wetland in Africa. So now the question here is, if you are really complaining about, flow is going to go down south of GERD, then you are allowing the largest wetland in Africa to be drained. What's the rationale of that being initiated at this point? It just doesn't add up. And also, in addition, the consequences and the impacts which you really have mentioned on the hydrology, on the livelihood, on the environment, on the ecology, is really quite substantial. There are data, there are already experiences, including the one that Dr. Abtew indicated in his presentation. So I don't know what will be your take, Wossenu, on this. Why at this time? Definitely, we know that it's not a good advice to actually drain a wetland. And at the same time, one of the complaints that Sudan is raising is the reduction of the recession agriculture, which is definitely the Jonglei Canal project is going to actually drain most of the water south into Egypt to increase water supply over there. And at the same time, it also impacts the amount of water available for on the floodplain, which is recession agriculture. So I don't see why at this time this is actually a project to initiate when it's already proven to be and shown to be not a good one. Wossenu, do you want to comment on this?
Well, with
you can mute your phone now.
I think the problem is that both Sudan and South Sudan haven't paid attention to what could happen if they take certain measures. And that lack of knowledge of experience of other places for drainage has resulted in more challenging situations. And once they dig up that canal, then if Khartoum gets flooded every year or things turn out, it is very hard to call. Very good study has to be done on the climatic effect, on the hydraulic effect. It is a decision that shouldn't be made by just one water minister or one bureaucrat to drain the Sudd wetlands, which is the case right now. It is so important that the whole nation of South Sudan and the Nile Basin and globally the United Nations, which is interested in climate change, has to encourage maintaining those kinds of systems. Otherwise, really getting meetings of climate change and with not much practical results will not change the climate.
Okay, good, because this is not really a small wetland. This is 3,500 square miles. This is really very huge, and the impact can be really very consequential. Okay, now let's open now the floor for more questions and comments now. If you can raise your hand. Okay, I see Tag.
Yes, thank you very much. I have been on this file for about 50 years now, 50. And most of it is in South Sudan. The Sudd in South Sudan, the drainage of the Sudd started in 1904 by a British engineer who was in charge of the Department of Water Resources in Egypt. So the Jungule Canal started as a colonial project and it remains a colonial project until now. And the Egyptians want to drain 4.5 billion cubic meters of water out of the Sudd. That's why they started digging the Jungule Canal. The machine, the Rupel, was disabled by Dr. John Garang and the SPLA in the end of 1983. The Egyptians are still trying to revive that project. The equipment is already there in Abtew. So we have a very dangerous situation. And the danger comes from the fact that the South Sudanese don't have a clue the fire they are playing with. So awareness, people's awareness, government awareness, which I did over 30 days just in July and August. But that was only the tip of the iceberg. So events like that and experts like yourselves can do a lot of good in awareness. The second thing is the Nile Basin Initiative and the CFA, the Cooperative Framework Agreement. 6 countries have signed on. Egypt and Sudan did not sign on and may not sign on at all. South Sudan will have to make up its mind. Is it going to stand with the African countries that have signed on, or are they going to stand with the 2 countries downstream? It is more than water now. It is really African stand, African solidarity. I very much appreciate the depths of the information, the comparative analysis, and if an article could be written with this content so that it remains in our hands, that will be great. And if the recording could be shared with us and we are allowed to share it with others, that will be very much appreciated. In future, you have my email. If I could be of help, please let me know. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Tag. It will be posted on the Nile Talk Forum website along with the presentations and the recorded version of this talk. And we will reach out to you. Definitely, I think I like the idea of writing a paper or maybe an opinion or maybe just a summary of some of the data, some of the knowledge from people like you to make it available for readers. I think this is really a very important project. This is a very important stage that we need to somehow bring the data and the information into the public. Wossenu, you would like to say? Okay.
Yeah, I think thank you very much for your comment. What I think we should do is we should organize a conference on this topic, and we can publish proceedings, a book out of it, write chapters or papers to bring it into the forefront. If Florida International University helps out in organizing, we have the contacts, and all what I've said can be written as a chapter with an expanded form, and that way I think we can put the importance of this topic. Otherwise, just talking about water drought in East Africa won't be beneficial. So that's the proposal on this.
Yeah, thank you, Wossenu. I think we'll think about it. We have experiences. We have the resources to explore options like conferences. Yeah. So let me go to now Birara. Birara, you have a question? Can you hear me, Birara?
He's muted.
You are muted.
Sorry. I have some suggestions for Dr. Wossenu. Thank you for your presentation. I have the very important knowledge. What is the impact of the drainage on soil fertilities or ecologies? But we couldn't find the methodology of the research or finding of the Dr. Wossenu. So which tools you have used to integrate this model? I mean, this finding, because it is field investigation or any models, because it's very important for us for the future investigation, because it is knowledge sharing. The other suggestion also is you have
You're breaking.
The wetland. Sudan region has a controversial idea. Okay. It is okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Egyptian Sudan have that controversial idea, the feeling of the GERD. It has any probabilities from the doctor to see the impact of the GERD or the feeling of the GERD on the wetland in lower Nile countries, Sudan and Egypt. Only you have seen the drainage impact on the wetland. What about the feeling of the GERD in Ethiopia on the lower Nile wetland? Thank you very much.
I didn't hear much.
Okay, I think the first one is about the methodology you're going to use on the impacts of soil fertility and others, the draining of wetlands. That may be something which you didn't talk about on a research or any analysis you do, which was based on the factors of published papers. And then the other one is, I believe, on on the broader impact of GERD as a whole. But this looks like something very important to look into as we go in the future. But if you'd like to say a few words, that would be great.
Let's continue to the next question.
Okay. Then Alam.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much, Dr. Wossenu, for comparative analysis from already established data and history of the Everglades comparing with the Sudd. So I think there is already several documented projects and papers analysis which really shed light. If you drain the wetland, what would happen? So thank you very much for presenting that one. My I don't have a question, but it's a comment. As the previous speaker alluded, I think it's very important to engage the various academia into disseminating this information to the larger audience, especially to the South Sudanese government. South Sudan is a very young country, just came into existence a few years back. So the developed knowledge and institutions are still growing and developing. So it's very important to have a system in this regard. From what I heard from the grapevine and people who are really very close to the information from the Ethiopian authorities, this is not a South Sudanese project per se. It's not started organically from South Sudan. It was kind of put together as AU project by Egyptian President Al-Sisi, from what I heard, and is couched as a navigation project to improve navigation to transport goods and service up and down the Blue Nile. So there is no impact analysis done. So it was really rush. So the speed that really the machine transported to South Sudan tells us that it was they want to done it in a rush because they know that resistance opposition if this was really discussed in a wider audience. So I don't know what the AU process is. I'm not very familiar with that one. So whatever movement or paper, I think it's be a very good idea if some academician really research this, and a project like this should be done, pass through some kind of academic rigor and commented on before it was really put green light. So because this does not only impacting South Sudan, it impacts the whole region. It impacts Uganda, Ethiopia, and the rainfall circulation pattern in the Ethiopian highland. Eventually, it will even impact Egypt because the Nile, the water that's really rich from Egypt is from the rainfall received in the Ethiopian highlands. If the rainfall amount is really impacted due to the draining of the Sudd, ultimately in the future also Egypt, Sudan, and everybody in the region will be impacted. So we shouldn't really leave it as a South Sudan issue. It's really a regional issue. It should be really taken very, very, very seriously. Thank you very much for bringing this a very, very important topic to light for discussion.
Okay, Wossenu, do you want to comment or?
Yeah, that's a good comment. I think if we have a conference, and right now the academia in South Sudan are trying to stop and they are petition signing, and on blogs they have written a lot of stuff. So to bring it into the front of the interest of everybody, I think a conference might be a good idea. I will try to write what I have been talking about.
Okay, yeah, I think Tag also through chat brought about a very important point, which is, Sudd is also under Ramsar, and that makes it really very important. There are people other than us that are much interested. There is an international law, and that also be on the side of the environment as in terms of bringing this very critical and very historical mistake to actually drain Sudd into action. So I think creating an awareness through conferences, maybe through other platforms, is very important. We'll continue to seek for that, but also as the largest wetland in Africa, it is a very important source of water for the convective rainfall in some parts of the Nile Basin. So as being said, it's going to also impact the whole Nile river flow as a whole. So I think that needs to be also taken into account. So this is not really physically draining a wetland. This is really impacting the whole convective cycle of the region, reducing the amount of summer precipitation, and that should be also taken into account. Okay, Taklab. Good to see you, Taklab.
Good to see you too. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I also want to, I think, mention a few things. One, I have been exposed to a similar phenomena in Minnesota, where such drainage taking place for many years. Because as you know, Minnesota is quite north, and therefore they have very short growing season. So what the farmer has to do is to drain to make sure that the water that is sitting on the ground drain as quickly as possible to Mississippi River, so that they have ample amount of time for other growing season. So one thing that I wanted to note here is what people have been studying. I think if you guys, there is a wealth of literature on that, the downside and the positive side, and also what I think the state and the region has been doing in that regard. But one thing that I wanted to bring to this attention is from South Sudanese side, this is a huge amount of land that the water is sitting on. And I don't know how much pressure the Sudanese government or the Sudanese population have in terms of productivity of the land, because these wetland areas are one of the most productive ecosystem in terms of agriculture too. So draining and putting it to agriculture, the valuation of that kind of conversion, how is it playing into South Sudanese hand? I think that is one thing that we need to take into consideration. And the other thing is, like Dr. Asafa said, I think especially the water yield, even I think in the eyes of Egyptians, the idea that they would get more water by allowing it to drain. What about the cycle of precipitation that has been disturbed as a consequence of that? Because through convention, there is a cycle of hydrologic input that is within the watershed. But once this watershed goes to Egypt and sit on Aswan Lake Nasir, then the chance that through evaporation that rainfall or that amount of moisture would remain in the watershed is nearly none. So there is a constant net loss of water, which actually eventually would hurt Egypt. I think that is a very important thing that we have to mention as well. And most importantly, like it is said, I think the bigger look at the watershed in general is the way by which we can draw attention to this crisis that is going on, whether it is carbon sequestration, whether it is the net loss of water as a consequence of losing that component of hydrologic cycle, and also looking at even if there is a temporary benefit for draining wetland and putting it to agriculture, but the consequence it has on the greater ecosystem and what have you is the things that we can see not just at the local scale, but the bigger scale, at the watershed scale. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Daniel?
Okay, thank you, Professor Asafa, the moderator, and also I would like to say thank you, Dr. Wossenu, for nice and valuable presentation. I have a comment and a single question. Probably my comment or just suggestion is, as we all know, wetland provides a best solution for climate change as a nature-based solution, because they can absorb or they can sequestrate carbon, and they can also sequester more carbon than rainforests that raise from atmosphere, and also they can absorb excess rainfall, so they prevent flooding during excess rainfall season, and also they help us to promote our agriculture in terms of fishers or maybe irrigation. So my concern is the South Sudan and the Sudanese are expected to drain this valuable wetlands, so that my concern is they try to blame us in case when there is flooding. They may their concern may be the flooding is that from upstream country, and in case if there is drought, this is belongs to upstream country again, so that they struggle to blame us when some hazardous situation occurs, so that we have to create an awareness for all individuals concerning this situation. And my question is, what framework is necessary to create irrigated agriculture in wetland? Because they have substantial impact in improving our agriculture system. So they have to be used for irrigation or other agricultural situation. So what framework is necessary to provide those land for agricultural purpose? Thank you very much.
Okay, Wossenu, do you want to comment on the last question? You said.
South Sudan is relatively large for the population. I don't think they have yet fully developed the non-wetland area for agriculture. So from the experience here, it is not easy to change a wetland to agriculture. It is not easy process. Once you will lose your soil, but the whole effort of draining a wetland, once you drain it, you have to protect it from reflooding by putting levee around that area where you want to have agriculture. And you need pumps to pump out the rainfall that fall on that levied area. So it is not with such a big kind of wetland system to think of agriculture and grow maize and profit out of it, because those are the types of crops you grow over there. So for South Sudan, it can plan to produce on non-wetland areas and still get benefit out of the wetland. Probably the carbon credit might be more than any agriculture on the Sudd when you put the kind of technology and investment you need to change it into agriculture. So that.
Yeah, as Wossenu said, there is no really a mechanism or framework, to drain a wetland to make agriculture. It's not wise. But in Sudan, it's being practiced, for a long time. Recession agriculture, which is using the water during the flood season, particularly in the floodplains. So those types of things, which is really adjacent to the wetlands, but not necessarily in the wetlands. So yes, that's actually being practiced. Next question, Niatan Mai.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm from South Sudan. I'm not from South Sudan. I work very close as well with Professor Taj. And I really agree. We are a few of us, South Sudanese, who are trying to create awareness within South Sudan. And of course, our argument has always been that the drainage of the system would have a huge impact on the livelihood of the community, on the fauna and the flora. But I think having this presentation, also going ahead with the conference and the papers that will follow, would be a huge help to amplify the voices of all those individuals who are trying to create awareness within South Sudan, because South Sudan government need to know that they're going ahead with this project will not only impact South Sudan, but it has a regional impact, as the presentation has alluded. And of course, we have hydroclimate climatic impact that will impact the region. So I think the region voices need to come out very clear to send a clear message to South Sudan that this is not only your issue, it is our issue in general. It has a global impact, as we've just seen as well. Sudd serve as a carbon sink, or let's say as a storage for carbon. If we drain it, of course, we're going to release the carbon. That means the impact is going to be global. So even as well, mobilizing global voices into this and say that this is not the best way to go forward. Egypt is such a small stakeholder to only benefit when the impact is going to be huge than what needs to be done. So I really want to thank you all for this voice, and please go ahead with the conference, involve us, and we really want to amplify the voices, and we'd like support as well to make our government understand. Thank you.
I think that's a very important comment. So I can see a force, I can see an energy to actually bring this into a larger audience. And also along the proposal that Professor Tag made, that we need to maybe contribute more on this and make it more public. But I have a question for Niatan. What is the current stand of the South Sudanese government on this canal? Is there any change, or still they're on board on this?
I'll give this to Professor Tak because he just came back from Juba. I think he'll have more updated information to me. So, Professor, if you could please answer that, that'll be very helpful. Thank you.
With your permission, Ato Asefa, can I answer that question?
Please, yeah.
Yes.
Please,
Sure.
Yes.
Before we went out and had 5 days of public consultations, 8 hours a day, we had about 6 or 7 scientific presentations in each day. The entire cabinet was there, and so was civil society and academia. There is very little awareness about floods and flood mitigation. And somebody came with the idea that one of the tools to mitigate flood is to drain more water into Yungule Canal so that it passes on, and that this is going to reduce the floods. So there was a very simplistic, very naive misconception about how to deal with floods. I must give credit to the Embassy of the Netherlands in South Sudan. They were among the very few who sent a delegation both to Bor and to Abtew in Unity State. And they made a very good account of the floods and why the floods were exacerbated like that in those 2 areas. So the lack of knowledge, the lack of solid knowledge, the interest of the incumbent government to call a spade and to get the facts, the courage needed and the nationalist approach needed to stop Egypt from meddling in their water issues, those are elements that all of us who are concerned about the Nile and the Nile Basin need to do. So just as a summary, the lack of knowledge, there isn't a single UNESCO chair in South Sudan. There is no UNESCO water chair in South Sudan. There is no water institute in any of the universities in South Sudan. I talked to the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, and I asked him about his total workforce, and he said 200. And I asked how many report to work every day. He said only 50%, just 100. What about the rest? He said they are not paid and they are not interested to come. So we have a massive gap in the institutional capacity of the ministries in charge to even start to educate themselves and to educate the public. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. This is very informative. What we hear in the news and what we hear from here and there was really a little bit different from what you told us. So I think this actually even reinforces our commitment to really go ahead and maybe create some forum for the scientific community to present and discuss the alternatives, the pros and cons of this canal, and bring the facts to the larger audience, even to the South Sudanese, government, who are actually, as I heard from Professor Tak, that there is a misconception in the consequences of, this draining the Sudd wetlands. Hopefully, we will contact with Professor Tak and also Nathan and also others who are much interested in this, and hopefully we'll bring more information, more papers, more presentations into the future. We will see what forum will be appropriate for us. Yeah. Any other question, comment? Can raise your hand.
Do you think you can involve the IGAD in any way in this issue?
Well, I mean, as academicians, working on science, I have never talked to any IGAD people. We'll see. I think you guys can help us definitely. Who are on the ground, and if there is any office that are more appropriate to contact, we can go ahead. I know one of my former friend is an advisor in IGAD. I mean, I can shoot him an email. Maybe he can guide us, what would be the right way to approach this. But I think this is really very important. Definitely, I think a lot of people will embark for us.
Yeah, because all those countries are member of the IGAD, with the exception of Egypt. And all we need is, we don't want the IGAD to take over. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the knowledge to do that. We just need the umbrella so that we have this inter-country linkage. But we can also think of other means and ways. We don't want to stand alone, Ethiopia on its own, South Sudan on its own, Uganda on its own. There is a lot of concern in the lakes region about the position of South Sudan. And it is taken as if they are siding with the Northern Arabs and they are abandoning. I hear that from a lot of people. So it's a little bit more than just the Sudd. It's a little bit more than just the water. There are other emerging issues that come into place. So just think about it, if we can have a wider umbrella of support. Otherwise, well, we are competent to do it in our own. The University of Juba is very much interested, and Professor Joanna Cage is very warm about this issue. So we have a very good anchor in Juba, in the University of Juba, which is the mother of the university in South Sudan. Thank you.
That would be great. Definitely. I mean, we'll go ahead and initiate, and I have your emails. I have everybody's contact information. So we'll hear more information on how to proceed. We can start the initiations, but people on the ground can take over it, and we can be part of that conference, part of that bigger gathering in the team. Yeah. Abtew?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Assafa, for the allowing me to speak here. I am very glad that Mr. El-Kazin mentioned John Akech, Dr. John Akech, the Vice Chancellor of Juba University. He was in our forum yesterday, Friends Forum. We meet monthly. And he spoke on the Sudd drainage, the Jonglei Canal. And I was going to mention that, but Mr. El-Kazin mentioned it. I can pass his information. We have a close contact for the past maybe 3 months or so. So we discussed this topic, as well as the CFA, the Cooperative Framework Agreement, which is very, very important that we get it ratified by at least 6 countries. South Sudan is one of the best candidates for ratifying it soon. And I hope Ms. Mai and Mr. El-Kazin will play a role here to convince the administration there to sign it. By the way, on July 9th, when they were celebrating their Independence Day, the president stated that he has stopped the project on the Jonglei Canal. And that's a big move. And I just want to mention that. And thank you very much, Dr. Wossenu, also for the presentation. It was enlightening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Abtew. Any other question, comment? Anybody else? That's good. That's very interesting. Wossenu, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I think I can see here on the chat the need of conference. So if anybody interested for full participation should contact Dr. Assafa or me.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I mean, over the last 3 years, we had 3 big conferences. So we have the experience, we have the interest to lead it. But I would like, the people like Professor Tag and others to collaborate very closely with us, and maybe our colleagues in South Sudan to actually take over it. We can facilitate, we can be forth behind, we can also work with them. But this is a very important topic. And I believe this canal and this drainage of Sudd is overshadowed by the talk of the gourd. And but its consequence, its impact is really huge. and it's being hidden. I think we have to bring the facts as researchers. We have that responsibility to actually shed light on the facts, on the pros and cons and the consequences, rather than the immediate, benefits of canals to Egypt. I think that's very important to look into. Any other question? Any other comment?
Just a quick one on President Kiir when on the 9th, when he addressed the nation on the 9th. Actually, that part, he took I made an appeal to him to do that, to stop the dredging, because Egypt imported 21 trucks loads of equipment into Ropkona, where Bantio is. And 2 of those were dredgers, 50-ton weight dredgers, with a reach of the bucket of 12 meters. If you want to clear aquatic weeds, all you need is probably 3 or 4 meters, not 12 meters. So the ulterior motive, the hidden motive, was to dredge that deep, 12 meters reach of the drag line, and 21 trucks load of equipment. And the equipment was not consigned to the government of South Sudan. It was consigned to the mission of the ministry of the Egyptian Ministry of Water Resources in South Sudan. So the game is really beyond South Sudan. The game is way beyond what it looks like. And unless this is exposed, and the dredging started with the CEO and Busari, which is just south of Wow, and then it was stopped. I had a small role to play in that stoppage in 2008. But the Egyptians are there, the equipment is there, the intention is there, God knows what else is there, because some people are supporting the resumption of Jonglei Canal. Now they have shied away after the 5 days consultations, and there is no benefit whatsoever, not a dime. There is no benefit to the people of South Sudan. It was a colonial project in 1904. It is a colonial project today to drain the Sudd. If you look at the map of South Sudan, there is a place called the Greenland. The Greenland is northern Uganda and all of western Equatoria. You never hear of a drought in northern Uganda. You never hear of a drought in western Equatoria. The reason, evaporation from the Sudd, the northern winds come and the rain falls there. So there is collateral damage, not only on the Sudd, in the Sudd area, but also into other places. And one of our colleagues mentioned that this is even important for Ethiopia, and that part of that evaporation goes into Ethiopia, which is correct. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you very much for the update, Professor Tag. Any other question or comment? Okay, so we will post the PowerPoint as well as the recorded presentation and discussion today. I will send a link. It will be on the Nile Talk Forum website. And we'll continue discussing this, and we'll announce the next speakers also on the topics. I will invite any one of you to come and give a talk, and also if you know anybody else who can shed light, not only on this topic, but on the whole Nile issue, we're very, very happy to accept your willingness to come and talk to us. Thank you very much, everybody.
Those who have contact with South Sudan, please send them the link for the presentation and the recording.
Yes, yeah, we will. Yeah, we will post, and definitely we will share. Definitely, Professor Tag and also Neanton will have access to that. Hopefully, they can share it to the larger audience. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah.
Okay,
Good afternoon, everybody, and have a wonderful Monday evening, Monday afternoon.
Same to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asfa, and also happy Mescal to all Ethiopians.
Thank you, Dr. Lama. Yeah, I did hear your voice here. We miss you. Yeah, I know. But thank you very much.
My points were taken by others. I didn't want to take additional
Okay,
time.
okay. Yeah, I can see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.